Well, it finally happened. You got your wish. No Land Beyond, the primary slot sniper from D1, is now finally back in D2. It is currently available as a pre-order bonus for the Ultimate Edition of the Year of Prophecy content pack, aka the next two expansions coming to Destiny. Which, as always, begs the question, is it worth it? New Land Beyond is a sniper rifle with two objectives: get precision hits and do not die. Each precision hit gives you a stack of the Master, which increases the precision damage of the weapon until you die. Not until you swap weapons or reload or whatever, until you die. The first stack of the Master is pretty significant in terms of the damage bonus. It's around 15%. And while diminishing returns start to kick in shortly after, once you hit 20 stacks of the Master, you'll be sitting at around a 70% precision damage bonus for the weapon. And it's also going to change itself to the Grandmaster buff. This bonus continues to stack up to 100, but you aren't going to be increasing your damage much more after you hit 20 stacks. I think 100 stacks is a 73% bonus. For the purposes of the video, I'm saying that 20 stacks is going to be our maximum. I know we're not exactly in a sniper meta right now, but this weapon still begs the question of, is this actually good? The sniper I tested against was Whisper of the Worm. Cloud Strike is cooking because of this episode, but historically, Whisper of the Worm has been the bar at which many DPS setups are tested against. My testing subject was the Ogre boss in Grasp, but thanks to the new shooting range that will be coming in the next expansion, this will hopefully be the last time I need to come here to test. And I might actually do more damage testing as a result of the shooting range actually existing. Anyway, let's get some damage numbers and math this out. Whisper of the Worm, on this boss, crits for 61,124 damage per shot, and let's say, for testing purposes, you're perfect. You never miss a shot, which isn't the most unreasonable, depending on the boss that you're fighting, especially if you have a div cage to shoot at. That damage, with 28 shots in reserves, gets us 1.71 million damage in about 23.33 repeating, of course, seconds, which is 73,348 DPS.
Oh, that's a lot better than we usually do.
New Land Beyond says that it fires at 72 RPM. It does not. It's actually just under 2 seconds per shot when you have to include the bolt action animation that you need to go through. So I'm just going to call it 30 RPM. And for the more advanced users out there, don't worry, I will get to that. Anyway, I first wanted to test this weapon to see how practical it would be to scale the damage on the boss itself versus having to scale during a non-damage phase. And the results of scaling on the boss were disappointing, to the point where I don't even think I need to attempt any kind of calculations to somewhat confirm that starting from 0 stacks of the Master is not going to be competitive with Whisper of the Worm in an average scenario. It only takes 4 stacks of the Master to surpass the individual damage per shot of Whisper, but you're also shooting at a rate of 0.5 bullets per second compared to Whisper's 1.2 bullets per second. Whisper can fire 28 shots in 23 seconds, whereas this weapon would take you over a minute to fire 28 shots thanks to reloads. So, for it to be a good idea or an optimal idea to start from scratch with NLB and have it come out ahead of Whisper would require a boss with a damage phase duration that I am not sure exists right now. So let's say you're starting from 20 stacks of the Master, your damage is already pumped up, we're ready to go. We deal 85,469 damage per shot on this boss. It does keep scaling up, but just barely, and I don't want to introduce this variable just yet. If we were looking to match the damage of Whisper of the Worm, we can simply divide the total damage of the 28 shots that we fired by the damage of one shot from NLB to see how many we need. 1.71 million divided by that 85,000 number, and we get 20 shots. 20 shots does require multiple reloads though, so it's like 40 seconds plus reloads, which is still about double the time commitment. Maybe it would be like 19 shots with the, slight scaling that you get, but let's just say 20. So after hearing this information, you would probably be inclined to say that New Land Beyond is bad and Whisper is great, let's go home. To which I would reply to that by saying a 6 stack of New Land Beyonds can one phase the Witness, and this is why perfect simulations don't tell the full picture. you need to go on a fight-by-fight basis. For example, the Witness has a lot of movement requirements during damage. This means that Whisper loses a lot of its power because the more you need to unscope and rescope, the less time you're doing damage because Whisper relies on whispered breathing. NLB, on the other hand, does not require anything remotely close to this, although it does demand that you don't die. So, New Land Beyond can come out ahead very easily in a fight like the Witness. On the contrary, if there's a fight where you can just sit there and easily hit all of your crits in a row and not have to move, well, Whisper is going to put in a lot of work. On top of all of that, we would need to look at the practicality of getting to 20 stacks of the Master in a fight before the damage phase started, or at least make a little bit of progress. This is much easier said than done depending on the encounter. Some fights have a lot of enemies to get stacks on, and it's no problem. Some of them have barely any enemies at all, and you need precision hits to increase the stacks, which is even more difficult to do depending on the target that you're fighting against. It is pretty much a case-by-case basis. How reasonable is it to stack up NLB in a fight? Can you stand still with Whisper? Do you have a divinity? Are you dying? How accurate is your shooting? All of these impact which weapon to use. Then, on top of that, we have reload speed adjustments. Kinetic Loader increases the speed of the bolt action portion. Flow State on Hunter does the same when you're amplified. And you can also do a sprint reload animation cancel on this thing. The more you are invested into any of the things here, the more damage you can output with NLB, and or the faster NLB could overtake Whisper in any given situation. I don't really expect the average person to animation cancel every shot, but it is yet another factor. Now, all that being said, the place where I think New Land Beyond will consistently excel is in stuff like Master or Grandmaster style content, strikes, battlegrounds, dungeons, what have you. This weapon can hold an insane amount of shots, like 45 or something like that. This is countered by the slow rate of fire. But as you hit shots and build the Master over the course of a strike or a run or dungeon, whatever you're doing, you're going to be contributing a lot of damage towards killing big, non-final boss targets. Assuming you don't die, which is a pretty big factor. I don't want to say that you can't ever die in a run while using this, but it's going to set you back pretty far if you do. Joining allies also counts as dying, by the way, so try to keep up with your team. If you find yourself prone to dying in this kind of content, I really don't know how effective New Land Beyond is going to be for you, but after running a couple of GMs and doing some dungeon farming with it, New Land Beyond is doing some pretty respectable things. It's got anti-barrier for the rest of the episode too. That's pretty nice to get rid of shields. And really, I think it's a fun weapon because it makes sniping feel not only really enjoyable again, but actually viable. Just think about it. Usually with the sniper, think of your average sniper. You feel like, or at least I feel like, you need to dump multiple shots into a target to even make a dent in them in the higher difficulties, with almost half of the total ammo capacity of New Land Beyond. New Land Beyond, on the other hand, hits like a truck from the get-go, and it scales up from there. It makes the act of lining up a shot and hitting it feel really satisfying, even if actually using this thing is much less appealing than a typical sniper. It makes sniping feel like it has some value again, some viability again. I was 3-shotting barrier hobgoblins, I was 2-shotting hydras in the ultimatum mode of Spire the Watcher. It just hits so friggin' hard, and it actually feels like the effort of using it and stacking the buff is really rewarded. However, with the group that I was playing with, very experienced GM players, I found that a good amount of the time I was playing catch-up. I had an Arc Warlock on my team and a Banner of War Excalibur Titan on my team, and they're moving pretty quickly, and they're killing pretty quickly. So my target selection was kind of limited. It's more of a first world problem than anything else, so maybe if you're with a team that really knows what they're doing, you would see a greater benefit to your overall speed by just going with a more meta setup versus staying in the back with New Land Beyond. But I was still hitting my shots, I was still killing champions, I was still getting things done. So yeah, I think that's all that I have on New Land Beyond for now, which begs the ultimate question. Is it worth it to pre-order the fancy version of the Year of Prophecy to get this thing right now? in my opinion, for the average person, not really. Yes, this is a really solid PvE weapon. However, we are in a weird in-between phase of the game right now. There's not as much activity, raid damage metas are pretty well defined, and the game isn't all of a sudden demanding that you use New Land Beyond in endgame content. It's a fun alternative for sure, but it's not something I believe to be mandatory. So for the purposes of min-maxing yourself, unless your entire life on this game is literally fighting against like the Witness in the raid or other bosses that would be taken down by New Land Beyond really easily, I would say that you can probably wait until this is more readily available. But it is a very satisfying weapon to use at the end of the day. It's good. So if you find yourself missing the sniper life, or maybe you're just an NLB homer from D1, maybe it's worth it to you. Let me know how you're feeling about New Land Beyond. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you next time.